Welcome. This is the Ralph Bivins Project. I'm Ralph Bivins. We're here today with Chip Colvill, Executive Vice Chairman of Cushman and Wakefield, which is one of the largest real estate companies in the world. Simply put, Chip is a skyscraper expert. He's leased space in most of the buildings that you see in downtown Houston skyline, if not all of them. He's leased the space in most of them. He's also the Energy Corridor, the Woodlands, the Galleria area. He knows what's going on in our biggest and best buildings. In 2001, Chip founded Colville Office Properties, which soon became a major player in Houston office leasing. Earlier this year, his company was merged into Cushman and Wakefield, a huge deal that everybody was talking about. And over his career, he's represented some of the biggest names in real estate development, some of the biggest developers, Hines, Trammell Crow, Midway. He's leased a lot of them. And millions of square feet, millions of big buildings. He's made these things happen. So, Chip, thank you very much for taking time to talk with us today.
You bet, Ralph. I'm really excited to be here. Great to see you on the screen. And I've always respected your work all these years. You covered Houston well. So I look forward to the questions and the dialogue this morning.
Thanks. We, with downtown Houston, you've done a lot of transactions there. You represent a lot of buildings there. What's the state of affairs in downtown right now?
Ralph, it's obviously with COVID, a lot of companies are still in a kind of work from home mode. I know Metro, continues to survey all the major employers downtown to see how many folks are actually getting into the office and to determine their Metro demand for busing and whatnot. But it's still lightly populated downtown for sure. We're all the buildings that we're involved in, we're working hard to create 3D Matterport video tours and things like that for tenant prospects that are reluctant to come take tours, although there's still several tenants that are touring. So the market's just a little off right now, and but every day that goes by we see more activity. I think we're certainly down from the pre-COVID activity that we saw, but every day seems to get better, and hopefully once we hit September and kids get back to school, more and more employers will get back into the office. But it's just been a crazy time, certainly.
Right. It's kind of, I know that downtown, I know the restaurateurs and everything downtown, they're having a tough haul right now. Just no people in the building, so their lunch business is not what it could be. But hopefully we'll get back to normal soon. I know you're right now. One of your big assignments downtown is the Texas Tower, the 47-story building being developed by Hines on the side of the former Houston Chronicle building, which is gone now. But I did a lot of hard time in that building.
I know you did.
Anyway, it's going to be a 47-story building, and what's some of the, I guess you'd say it's one of the newest buildings that's happening anywhere in the nation or the world. So tell me about what's going to be in the Texas Tower.
Well, we're pouring the 32nd floor this week. The activity has been good. I think the the post-COVID era, that type of high-end office product with natural light, underfloor air is going to be in high demand. I think we certainly saw a flight to quality before COVID, and I think on the post-COVID era, I think employers are going to look even harder at their workplace. So we've seen good activity. We're talking to several groups. Michael Anderson, who works with me, directs that leasing, and construction has been going great. The Hines construction team has been pushing that project. And if anything, I think they're ahead of schedule. So it's going to be a fantastic building, and it's certainly, going to continue to elevate, downtown. If you look at the AA, buildings downtown that are already existing, 609 Main, buildings of that nature. I mean, those buildings are 92% leased.
Wow.
So it was clearly a flight to quality, and I just think we're going to continue to see it. Hopefully before the building tops off, we'll be rolling out a vaccine for COVID. So things will start to get back to normal. But I think clearly, we've seen a lot of interest in that building from the tenant community.
Yeah, the flight to quality. A few years back, I just thought, well, that's I wasn't a true believer. But as time wears on, you see the new buildings, the class AAA or whatever people call them, the brand new buildings are attracting tenants, and the other buildings try to catch up. The flight to quality buildings is here. It's working. And we can see what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly elevated, existing buildings in downtown. I mean, we've seen hundreds of millions of dollars get spent downtown. I mean, over the years, I've leased, I think 60% of the buildings in downtown. Right now, we handle about 33% of the Class A market downtown. So we have a number of buildings that have either renovated or are in the process of completing renovations. But the good thing is we've got a lot of really strong institutional owners, downtown that can spend that capital. But the newest towers have certainly forced the existing buildings, the 70s and 80s, vintage buildings, to really look at their assets and figure out ways to make them, more to today's standards. So we're seeing a lot of fantastic renovation work downtown.
Right. I guess just recently, last month, we had the 600 Travis, the exterior there with the new entryway, the outdoor plaza. Of course, this building, the tallest building in Texas, 75 stories, but it's right by the theater district, Jones Hall, things like that. And looking at the renderings, I believe HOK did that plan. Looking at the plaza, the way it's going to be, it looks like be a lot more like food service or activated places that people can, probably grab a bite to eat before, going to the theater or something like that, as a pre-theater market built into it. And, this entryway is, this kind of pyramid shaped glass going up to about the 5th floor, I think, at the entryway of that building where it used to be. That's the new addition to it that Hines has announced. And looking at that, and it kind of reminds you of the Louvre or something, that that slanted glass. It's going to be. I can't wait to see it. I think it's going to be an interesting addition, and it's one of those improvements to buildings that we keep seeing. I look back at Louisiana Street, which back was it was where the coolest, newest buildings were going, and when a few decades ago, and you have all these buildings like, you had Pennzoil, you had 811 Louisiana Street, 1100 Louisiana, 910 Louisiana. All these big towers have now been improved and renovated, and are able to compete on Class A level. That's pretty cool. And from that, you see, now we're moving to the northern part of downtown, I call it. There may be a better name for it, but there by Market Square. And then, of course, also recently in the last maybe 10 years or 8 years, we've kind of gone across and jumped across Main Street with new construction and major towers over there. So it's gone beyond what Louisiana Street, I think, was such a, Block 82 and all that. And it's gone beyond just being Louisiana Street, and downtown's has high quality buildings in newer areas that we didn't see back when downtown was really becoming of age. A lot of which was done by Hines,
Yeah, certainly Hines, they're extremely bullish on the north side of town. I mean, they've got a high-rise residential project going up. I mean, two or three of the finest high-rise residential projects are in that area. And the market square area, is highly desirable. I mean, people want to get out and walk to restaurants, and the tunnel is still very appealing and necessary. But I think more and more, we're seeing more of the street level get developed. Which is what Houston has needed for a lot of years. I mean, we had it a lot. All the retail was down in the tunnel, and people would come in from out of town and drive around downtown. And they say, "Where?" During lunch hours, like, "Where is everybody?"
Yeah.
They're underground. So I think Jones Plaza, getting that redevelopment, kicked off. I know I've seen the renderings, not sure the timing, but that would be a phenomenal new addition. I remember years ago going to Jones Plaza on a Thursday night for outdoor concerts. It's a lot of fun, but it's just walkability and but it's been fun to watch the residential market and how that's. I mean, I think Crow just kicked off a new project this month downtown over by the baseball field. So they're obviously seeing the demand, and I think we'll continue to see young and older folks moving downtown. That maybe they people like me live in an apartment during the week, and on the weekends I'm out of town at my weekend house. But it's been fun to kind of watch the evolution of downtown, and certainly the new development has been phenomenal.
Right. But that Crow, I believe it's Chip is referring to the new Trammell Crow Tower that just broke ground, a residential tower. It's on a block next to the Hess building and next to the Marriott Marquis over there, and it's right across from just a few steps away from Discovery Green, which has been a huge deal for making downtown a livable place and a place people want to go. I've been surprised at how that Discovery Green is the way people have loved to go there. Families love to go there and go to events and see, just enjoy the space. And it's overwhelmingly great improvement that we're lucky to have, and we're lucky our city fathers pushed it and made it go. Also, want to think about one question about co-working space. We've heard a couple of years ago, this was the thing: co-working, WeWork, all those brands that emerged to have office sharing and places you can come in and open your laptop, that the small entrepreneur or small company, all these different uses of. It was really a hot item, and they were taking a lot of space in these buildings and opening these WeWork programs and these co-working spaces, kind of like executive suites, I guess, in a way. Very, very popular. And now, of course, things have changed on that. WeWork's had some headlines, and things aren't the same. Tell me a little bit about co-working, and where is that over, or what happens next with that?
We've done probably 300,000 square feet of co-working leases. In fact, last week, believe it or not, I went to leases on a 35,000 foot co-working deal out in West Houston.
Really?
With an operator that's going to be a great operator. They're very bullish on co-working in the post-COVID era. I think certainly I've been lucky enough to be on several national calls with all the Cushman and Wakefield market heads around the country, and we've discussed co-working and kind of what we think is going to happen there. And I think certainly there's going to continue to be a demand for it. I think there'll be a lot of tenants on the post-COVID era that might need flexibility, which certainly co-working operations provide. I mean, you can sign a 1 month lease. I think obviously the co-working model would be different. Pre-COVID, it was, hey, let's stack 10 per thousand, people into space, and let's have, benching, and, it was just a very dense model. I think the model will change. I think the spacing, as far as employee spacing or occupier spacing on the floors would be wider and more spread apart, obviously. And that might, impact their pricing as far as how they price their product to the end user. But clearly, I think the co-working model will be in demand. I mean, Houston, we've probably overall, probably signed about 1 million square feet of co-working tenants in this market.
Wow.
We were kind of thinking it would grow to 2 to 3 million. Certainly a far cry from what New York has done and other major cities. I mean, I don't think we're overly saturated on the co-working side of things, but I clearly think there'll be a demand for it. I think there'll be tenants that need that flexibility. And we look at these co-working operations as amenities in our building, because a lot of tenants come in, they lease direct space with us. They like the idea of having flex space in the building. The co-working operator can operate a conference center, and other amenity space. They can rent out that space, if they need it for events and things like that. So, a lot of owners, Hines, Brookfield, others are looking at co-working as a necessary amenity in their buildings. So I think when you have that landlord support, clearly I think you'll continue to see it. But again, I think the whole co-working model will look different. It'll look, it's kind of funny how everybody was kind of migrating away from closed office space, and a lot of companies were looking to go to, more open space and more dense layouts, et cetera. The architects now, I've been on a number of calls with some of the major architects, and they're all, obviously recasting kind of how they're going to look at layouts. I mean, I've got a good friend who's runs McCoy Furniture, and they're as busy as ever, going into existing tenant spaces and modifying workstations to create the separation. So I think we'll see, the office user at the end of the day kind of change how they want to lay out their space, and the days of the private office may be back. You may see more tenants now looking. I mean, I toured a full floor user last week, and they were looking for 80% closed office space.
Is that right?
Where last year, if they were in the market, it might be 50-50 or even more open space. So, I think the trends are going to change, certainly. And, that may mean that, some tenants might have to lease more space in order to accommodate, the closed layout that they're trying to achieve.
That could offset, some of what's going on with some of the contraction. Hey, but previously I think the recent trend has been packing more and more people on less square footage, and that's maybe reversing. And then you've had these places that were, even sharing desks, sharing workspace. You come in and take somebody in an area where I don't know who sat here last week. Or yesterday, I don't know who sat here. Did the guy sneeze on my chair or whatever? I was like, yeah. You just wonder, like, oh man, it's totally different. You just can't with this. I think the sensitivity towards infectious disease is going to just do what you said. That's pretty amazing, though, what you're talking about. They've looking for your tenant you've been working with, looking for so much, not the open space, but a more closed in, the open floor plan. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of companies. They look at this COVID thing, and let's hope we have a vaccine soon. But companies are making long-term decisions on leases, and hey, this has been a very disruptive event for a lot of companies, and yeah, this is gonna impact how they're gonna lay out their space. But they're also, I think now more than ever, going to be looking at the long-term value of the space for their employees, and how do I have the best laid out space that is the best layout for my employees. And again, that may be there's been a lot of dialogue on, hey, is work from home going to become a permanent?
Yeah.
I mean, there's been, IBM years ago went to a work from home model, and it didn't work. They're shifting back towards wanting, their people to come into the office. I think, we've been working from home at Cushman and Wakefield for all these months, and I can't tell you how much I'm chomping at the bit to get back to the office. I mean, I got people that I love to see daily, that I love to work with, and all these video phone calls are great, but I can't replace being in the room with somebody and the learning experience of just somebody being in the room with me, reading my face, me reading their facial expressions, and just the personal interaction is something I think we all miss. And I think it's kind of funny. I read where you would assume some of the younger folks, younger employees would really love working from home. From what I understand, they really don't like it. They like being in an office where they've got a senior person that's over them, that's their mentor, that's giving them praise when they're doing a good job. It's just hard to do that over a video phone call. So it's just going to be interesting to see how this goes. I mean, I think a lot of companies will survey their employees and say, hey, would you like to work from home? If you did, what percent of the week would you want to work from home? And it'll some employees may say, hey, I'd like to work 1 day a week from home. I'd like to, work from home on a Friday morning and leave town. It's just things like that are just not going to be that impactful to really kind of change, how companies, look at their office space. I think the work from home thing is there's just a lot of dialogue about it, but at the end of the day, I don't see it as a long-term threat for the office market, honestly.
You're thinking like a new employee. How's a new employee break into a company when everything is virtual and they
Right.
go into the building? That's a lot. Just a second. Want to do a 20-second commercial, okay? Well, there it is.
There it is.
My book, Houston 2020, America's Boomtown. It's available on Amazon. If you want to pick it up there, or if you want to contact me offline, and maybe we're got a special deal and get a signed copy. But it's available on Amazon. So if you want to pick that up, that's great. I think we're looking at the past and the present and the future of this great city. And I guess part of that great city, we hadn't talked about this yet, but just your deal. We know that you created Colville Office Properties, and that became a pretty major player in the state and maybe beyond. But in the course of that merger, tell me a little bit about the merger of your company with Cushman and Wakefield, and how your team dealt with that.
Yeah, sure. A lot of people may not know this, but I started my career in 1984. Lou Cushman hired me. I worked at Cushman Realty at the beginning of my career. Learned a ton from Lou, who I consider to be one of the smartest, most driven experts in this business. So for me, it was, I was lucky enough to start Colville Office Properties about 20 years ago. And, through support from the Cushman brokers and all the brokerage firms, for that matter, we were able to grow a really excellent portfolio in the market. And, year in, year out, we were number one, number two, as far as total Class A portfolio size. And, it just for the kind of full circle for me, having my firm join Cushman and Wakefield was just icing on the cake for my career. The Cushman and Wakefield folks are fantastic, and Tim Relier and Scott Wegman, who run the office, are good friends, as are many of their brokers. So it was just an easy decision, for me, and fortunately for us, it was a complete plug and play of my company. All 22 employees have joined Cushman and Wakefield, and they rolled out every opportunity for every one of my brokers and staff to join the firm. So, it wasn't a scenario where I was looking just to monetize, Colville office properties. It was real kind of looking at what the next, steps were for me and my employees. I think for everybody that works for me, they're all excited about, being part of Cushman and Wakefield. And certainly, through these challenges of COVID, I mean, I've been amazed at the technology and the studies and the knowledge and things of that nature that I've learned from Cushman and Wakefield. It's really worldwide efforts. I mean, they have a major presence in China, and we've had calls with the China market leaders on the phone, kind of talking about what's going on there. I mean, it's just been a great opportunity. So, for me, it's just kind of coming full circle where I started my career working with Lou Cushman, and I'm gonna end my career working with Lou Cushman, and I'm not done by any means. We got a lot to do, and certainly now I think more than ever our clients, need us and need our guidance, and it's going to be a challenging market. Houston. I've been through 5 or 6 cycles in this market. This is going to be another one, and we're going to roll up our sleeves and work as hard as we did before, but it's certainly going to be fun being part of a major international real estate firm, going through this. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. The analysis and the research that can be obtained from when you're dealing with a worldwide pandemic. You've got a lot of capability there with Cushman and Wakefield. It's figuring out what's going on, what's going to happen next. It's pretty good. Your company, one of your guys recently brought Google, did a deal with Google in Houston, and I think it's the Buffalo Heights project there off Washington Avenue near Buffalo Bio. First time we've had that brand in town, but it is, the gold standard in a lot of ways of tech. Of tech names, and so and we hadn't had enough of those. So that's is that going to change anything in terms of the perception of Houston as a good location for these high tech firms?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we did a full floor lease with Amazon out in City Center. You got Google. We did a major lease years ago with Microsoft. Microsoft's been, in the market as well, kind of looking for additional space to bring some of their software engineers to Houston. So, I think, Houston has gotten, knocked because we're not, we don't have the tech industry, but certainly those users are really kind of changing that. I mean, you look at these oil and gas companies. I mean, they're full of tech people. I mean, you walk into an oil and gas office and there's engineers with 6 computer screens on their desk, tracking who knows what. We have a lot of technology people here. So I think companies like Google are looking at that and looking at the opportunity. And we're real excited about Buffalo Heights. It's going to be a phenomenal project. Russell Gordy, has kicked off and developed, and we've got a phase 2 there that, we've already seen some strong interest on. But yeah, I mean, I think, with all the incubator push from the Greater Houston Partnership and, projects like the Ion over that Bryce is doing, I think we're doing more and more to appeal to the tech industry. And certainly we have the growing population here. We've got, Houston is more, diversified than ever. We're really aligned more now with the U.S. economy and the world economy, for that matter, with the Port of Houston. So I think the workforce here is pretty phenomenal. So I think at the end of the day, we're going to see more and more tech companies look at Houston, and certainly more tech startups, as we were seeing, and it's really exciting to look at all that.
The Ion, of course, is the redo of the historic Sears building there in Midtown, between downtown and the medical center. And what I've been there, after it's under construction, what they're doing is looked pretty good when it started, and I think it's going to turn out to be quite a project. and it is kind of an incubator thing. It's Rice University is involved. We have some people that know a lot about startups, companies that know about startups. They're going to be involved. So hopefully it'll be a great thing. That's something we need more of. Is more startups, more new companies, more technology. And as we look at the change of our world, our society, and we see change coming in with the companies like Tesla and people that are want to change our culture in terms of the energy usage and the environment and things like that. And of course, we along those lines we have the energy corridor, which is a worldwide famous project. It's a district. It's many buildings, and it's known all over the world, all over the Middle East, Europe. It's a very famous submarket, as you might say. And we had the major energy players of the world: BP, Shell, Exxon was there, and Exxon Chemical. But we've had a lot of major energy branding. What happens to the energy corridor going forward? When fracking really took off, about 9 years ago, fracking really became popularized, and energy production and domestically just exploded. It really went off the charts, and we became the top producer again. What happens to the energy corridor, though? I think I don't know, it depends on where you draw the boundaries, but 30 million feet base or something, it's huge. What's next for the energy corridor, Chip?
The energy corridor, certainly has some amazing buildings, some great real estate, very accessible with the Katy Freeway, very accessible to Katy and the Katy school districts. And at the end of the day, I think Houston forever kind of got knocked for not having mass transit. Now we're probably not thankful, but we're probably looking at ourselves saying, not having mass transit may not be so bad now. I think a lot of companies will look at where their employees live more than ever, and look to be in locations that are close to where their employees live, even closer. And so those employees can drive their cars and park in a 4 per 1,000 garage. So there's certainly some great real estate in the energy corridor. At the end of the day, maybe changing the name energy corridor to another name might help. I mean, I think a lot of tenants and maybe outsiders look at that and say, well, that's the energy corridor. That's probably, if I'm not in the energy business, should I go there?
Right.
But I think there's a lot that the energy corridor has to offer. But certainly that market historically has been one of our best suburban markets. It's certainly seen some ups and downs. It's the oil and gas business. We're watching it daily, and there's been a lot of capital cutback, and the well count's way down, and at the end of the day, oil prices could spike at some point in the future. I mean, I think a lot of predictors are not really saying we'll see a big spike in the next couple of years. We may not, but I think at some point the fossil fuels aren't going away, and the oil prices will recover. They always have. So it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, for companies like BP and Shell to all of a sudden need 200,000 square feet for a project, that's just how they roll over the years. And I also think that now with this downturn, certainly in the oil and gas market, as we've seen in years past, I mean, some of these major companies may move more and more people to Houston. I heard of a major oil company that's got a pretty significant presence in Midland, and there's a good chance they're going to move all those people back to Houston.
Yeah.
Housing has been hard to find in Midland. Catching flights up there has been tough. The hotels were all booked. It was really a tough time. And hey, it was a fracking boom, and things have kind of plateaued out to some extent. But I think you may see more of that, where companies do look at consolidating people back to Houston, and that certainly would bode well for the energy corridor.
We've seen that before. That
Yeah.
people from Tulsa, Midland, Odessa, whatever, they moved those divisions back to Houston.
Mm-hmm.
That's a help. That's a help. And the other thing you brought about, well, the companies want to be a little more spread out. Maybe they don't want to be in these areas, these cities where you've got to take a subway to get to work because that's the only way to get around. Maybe there'll be some, hey, well, instead of having 1 million feet of office space and thousands of employees in Manhattan, maybe we want to spread some out and have and why not have an office in Texas, and why not have a break down these big concentrations for not only for if there's a pandemic, if there's a outbreak somewhere, but also if there's like energy or disaster of sorts, those kind of things that it would happen. And if you got all your eggs in one basket, if you're spread out, you can operate with continuity and not have difficulty with our whole company is under duress. And so hopefully places that are outside those major metro areas can get some of that.
Great.
We'll see. And the other idea as well, more suburban offices, more maybe not as many CBD. Maybe we see the Woodlands or something. We've already seen it. The Woodlands has got a lot of people working. 100,000 people work there now, or 60,000 or something. We've seen some of that spread out, and maybe our city will, and not being dependent on mass transit might end up being a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, you look at our downtown Houston, there's a lot of parking down there. I think a lot of employees voluntarily just take some form of mass transit to get downtown. But I think at the end of the day, if a lot more employees said, hey, I want to drive downtown, there's plenty of parking, downtown. But certainly the suburban markets, may be attractive as well. But I think you got a lot of major tenants that are downtown, been downtown forever. They're never going to leave downtown. I mean, it's just where they belong. But it'll be interesting to see. Certainly if we can attract more corporate relocation activity. I know the Greater Houston Partnership's working on it. We've already seen some inquiries from some users.
Great.
Some of these users, you don't know where they're coming from, but they could certainly be coming from other major cities that are very dense cities that they do want to spread out and get more elbow room. And certainly we've got a lot of that, in the suburban areas of Houston. So I think energy corridor, the Woodlands, those are certainly great areas that will attract, users.
Right. And then that's where we go from here is we do the partnership, we need some big hits. We got some empty space here. I don't know what the total is, but I've heard 50 million feet. I don't know if that's counting every building or what, but there's a lot of space and you look, what are we going to do with all these buildings that are becoming obsolete to a certain extent, or Class B buildings, and what's the ultimate outcome for all these buildings? What happens? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're involved only in the Class A market, and it's about 27 million of direct available. We were burning way down the sublease kind of overhang from 2015, 2016. We were down under 3% market wide, which is historically where our sublease space has been, even in a good market. So we were really feeling good about that. But to your point, there are a lot of buildings that are 70s, 80s vintage buildings that might have small floor plates, are not as efficient, or in a less desirable location, that just we'll have a very difficult time attracting tenants, and it's all, the flight to quality. So there's a lot of that inventory. You could look at the 27 million and just say, let's just set that aside. It's just not. I hate to say it, it's not going to lease. It will lease at some point when the market gets back to a more stabilized market, but at least in the interim, there's just some areas of some buildings that just kind of drag down our statistics.
We've been talking with Chip Colvill of Cushman and Wakefield, and we appreciate him being with us. And we got, of course, we want to remind you that we operate a website, or my organization operates a website, realtynewsreport.com, and you can go on there and keep up with the activities happening around the state or even around the nation sometimes, and big deals, big trends. And so check that out. And I guess we have one last question, for Chip. Just thinking about new space, new buildings. We've got, I believe it's 4.5 million, 4.7 million square feet of buildings. He's representing several of them. And so when will we ever have, will we ever have another new building built?
I think,
when will the next one be? When will the next one be? You think? What's the outlook for ever adding another new building?
it's hard to say, but I tell you, there will be more new buildings, and it's kind of counterintuitive if you look at the vacancy, we just talked about, but there's such demand again for tenants wanting to move to newer product in more emerging areas. Certainly that Buffalo Heights project wouldn't surprise me to see a new building get kicked off in the Midtown area. At some point in the future, you'll see another new building downtown. Obviously the developers are going to look at it more cautiously and make sure they understand the tenant demand for space, and they may have pre-leasing thresholds to achieve and things like that. But you will absolutely see more new development in Houston. It's just the tenants are demanding it. They want it. And every new project that we've been involved in, knock on wood, so far is leasing up. And it's just the flight to quality. And like I said earlier, it's been great to see the existing building renovations. We've been a part of a number of those projects, and that's been fun.
Yeah, we'll see. We know Skanska bought 3.5 acres real close to Discovery Green Park. Last fall they bought this property, and they're talking mixed use, and I don't know. We'll see. And then the world change, and that's kind of where we're at. And but anyway, Chip, thank you so much. We've been honored to have you. We really appreciate you taking your time and spending it with us, and we look forward to seeing what's going on in the rest of 2020 and then 2021.
Ralph, I've always held you in the highest esteem, and like I said earlier, you've been an amazing expert covering the Houston real estate market. So I really appreciate and honored to be here today. So you stay safe, and we'll see you once this fog clears. Look forward to getting together.
Thanks, Chip. Thank you.
Thank you.